Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the next installment of Android Tip Calculator tutorial. So we're right here, and one thing I forgot to say in the last video is that we have to set one more property here. So click on the first customer and then scroll down to where is it? Here, select all on focus. Set it to true. And then go to amount 1 of 1 and also set it to true. So what does that do? What that does is basically makes it so that when the end user clicks on one of these two edit texts, it'll automatically select all the text that's inside of it, and that way the user can easily delete what's already there and enter his new input. And focus is basically what view is currently active. So what is the user currently editing if it's an edit text. Okay, great. And you'll notice that in our preview here, the customer right here is already highlighted. So that means that customer is the default first thing that gets focused when the app starts. And that doesn't really make sense for a tip calculator because our user probably doesn't care too much about who or about the name right here. He probably just wants to get right to editing the numbers. So let's change that. Go into the XML. Find our code block for our first customer, which is this one. You can just double click it this way. Find the request focused line of code here and cut it and paste it down here. This is our edit text. Oh, sorry. Yeah, here. This is our edit text for amount 1 of 1. And now our $0 right here will be the first thing that's focused, although we're not done yet, so it doesn't show up. Go ahead and, so what we did was we cut this, we had to change how we close the tag. So in XML you can close this block code two ways. One is to put slash and then brackets, or you can just do slash edit text and put that whole thing in the brackets. So basically what I'm saying is you have to move this also, cut it, put it down here, and then delete this slash and put a slash here. That's basically all I'm trying to say. Okay, let's see what it looks like. Okay, great. So now this is the first thing that's selected. And you'll notice that Eclipse is giving us some errors, or at least warnings. It says hard-coded string customer should use @string resource. And what that means is, generally speaking, it's not always a good idea to write strings, to hard-code strings like this by typing just what you want there to be. Usually you want to have a variable that you can change easily instead of hard-coding. So this is what makes Eclipse happy. I'll show you. You go to resources and go to values and go to strings, and then you add a string, and let's say we call it, click on strings, give it a name of 0, and then give it a value of what we want it to be, so this. And then we go ahead and go back to our layout right here. And let's go over here, and instead of having it just be this, we can change it to a string. @string/0. Save it. And, oh, wait, that's not right. Maybe it's not supposed to have a... Let me see. Shoot, what was it? Will this fix it? Okay, I'm just going to do it the GUI way because I can't remember. So go here, click the ... here. Oh, I know what it is, sorry. We forgot to save the string document. So Control S to save it, go back here. And there it is. And it is @string/0. And then click OK. And then the warning should disappear. If it doesn't, hit save. So what we did is we replaced our hard-coded string with a variable called 0. And now we can replace all of the, well, we don't have any more, but if we had more edit text that we want to say 0, we can replace it all with just @string/0. And then if we ever want to change what 0 looks like, we can just change it once in our strings document here, and it'll change for everything. And that's what Eclipse wants you to do. I don't actually do that for a lot of strings because I think it's easier just to hard-code it in. So arguably it's bad practice, but I think for stuff like this, it's irrelevant. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. But that's what you might want to do if you feel like it. Again, I'm not going to do it. And because I'm not doing it, I have these really annoying warnings, so I'll show you how to get rid of them if you don't want to deal with them either. Click this red square here. And go to the warning, hard-coded string, blah blah blah, and press disable issue type. And now Eclipse will not complain about it anymore. We have 2 more warnings, so let's go ahead and deal with them. First warning is accessibility, missing content description attribute on image. So what that means is Eclipse wants you to type this in. Save it, and it'll be happy. Now, what the content description property is for people who are visually impaired, they can't see everything that's on your app. So they need their device to read out to them what's on the screen. Now, the device can usually read text views and edit text really easily because that's just text. But what about buttons and image buttons and images? If you want your visually impaired users to be able to understand what's on your app or what's on your images, you can put a content description attribute here, and then give it the name or give it a description for what the button or image button does. In this case, as another diner. And then the blind user can go ahead and have the device read out to him what this button does, even though it's an image. So it's an accessibility option, but it is very optional, and I actually don't use it because, well, partly it's just because it takes too long to add them all. You can use it if you want. I'm going to go ahead and not do it, and I'm going to suppress the warning as well. So the same thing, go click on it and then disable issue type. Arguably this is a bad thing, you know, decreasing accessibility, but I feel like most people that are visually impaired will have more things to worry about than calculators. So there we go. I disabled it, and we actually have one more warning here. Let's go fix that. It says that our layout height should be wrap content. That's fine. Let's make it wrap content. So what these are, okay, so for a lot of these width and height variable or attributes, we have stuff like wrap content and match parent and fill parent instead of like pixel amounts. And what that means is, okay, so fill parent is fill up the parent view that you're in, or attempt to fill up the parent view. Or let me explain with paint. So a parent view is the view that the current view is located in. So this is, say, the table layout, or let's just make this the scroll view, and this is the table layout. And then what it's doing now is it's filling the parent. This table layout is filling as much as it can the parent view, which is the scroll view. We can also have match parent, which, from what I understand, is very much the same thing. It will match the height and width of the parent. And then the last one is wrap content. So this is our scroll view here, and then this is our table layout, and the table layout has content inside. Content. So it'll expand and contract based on how big the content is. So right now the content is that big, so the table layout is that big. If the content is longer, then the table layout will automatically expand to wrap around that content. So that's what wrap content is. So those are the 3 main ones that we use for height and width. Let's move on. Okay, let's look at the plan again. We need a add order button for the first customer, so let's add that in. Same basic idea, nothing new here. And I'm going to start moving a little bit faster since we're starting to get a hang of Eclipse. So put it in table 2 as well. And you can give it the proper image if you have it. I do have it, so put it there. Let's give it an ID of add button 1. Okay. And great, so we have the first part of, where is it? Of our plan done. Basically, this whole part here is done because remember, Diner 2 and all the other orders, those are totally optional. They're created dynamically when the user clicks these buttons. So when the app first starts out, and that's what we're designing here, the first starting out layout, the user doesn't actually see these. And obviously it's not quite right because it does not fit the screen. This first button here, it is completely stretched out because Android is trying to make it fit, or it's trying to make it the same size as this thing here, and that's not good. And I have the infographic I want to share. So here's what we have. The button is all stretched out over here, and we want the button to be small and over here and aligned with the add button. So we want to move this button to the third column instead of having it be in the second column where it's aligned with this huge edit text. So how do we do that? Let's see. Click on the Add Diner button. And I believe you can actually do this in the graphical layout tab. I think you have to go into the XML. I might be wrong, but we should learn XML anyway, so let's go into the XML. You can double click it. This is the image button we're working with. This is what you do. This line of code right here, Android : layout underscore column equals, and then 2 in quotes. And if we look, you can see that it's not here, it's actually on the side over here, right here, that we can't see. And what that is, so the column property, the layout underscore column property, just says where in which column this item should occupy in the table. By default, the first item you put into a row will be the first column, and the second will be the second column, and so on and so forth. If you want to change that, you use this property. And you notice that the number 2 here corresponds with the third column, because the first column is actually column 0, according to Android. So it goes 0, first column, then 1 corresponds to the second column, and 2 here corresponds to the third column, and that's what we used. Okay, moving on. Obviously a huge problem still is that it still does not fit in the screen, even though it's properly aligned. So now we gotta change one more thing. Again, I think this has to be done in XML, but I'm not quite sure. Go up here into the swirl view, and let's write some code. Type Android shrink. Oh, you know what? I think I'm wrong. It's not here. We actually have to type it into the table layout, the main table code here. So put it there, and it's, sorry, let me zoom in. First one, Android layout underscore, Android : shrink columns, and it'll just tell you what it is. If any time you want to know what any of these properties are, you can just hover over it, and Eclipse will tell you. Or I thought it would. Might be an option. Okay, anyway, I'll tell you what it is after I finish writing this code. And another line, Android stretch columns. Okay, great. Let's look at it. Looks pretty good, I think. So let's go over what we just did. Okay, so the shrink columns property is, it basically shrinks all of the, okay, how do I put this? What's the best way to explain this? Okay, so you put a string, or you put 2 numbers here. The first number indicates which column you want to shrink. The second number is true or false, it's 1 or 0. So we want to shrink column 0, and we set this to true, as in we do want to shrink it. So what it does is it takes the first column and shrinks it so that everything fits inside the table, or fits inside the screen. And then we also have stretch columns. And what this does is it takes the 0 here represents the first column again, and it stretches the first column. Oh, and again 1 is true rather than false, so that's why that's 1. And it stretches the column in case our app is being run in a huge like tablet or something and actually doesn't fit. It'll stretch the first column so that the entire row will fill out the entire screen, or at least the entire table layout. We won't really run into it here with most mobile devices, but I put it into most of my apps just in case they run it on a larger device. And then you can change this to like, let's say, oh, again, if you change it to the third column, it's not going to be able to shrink it enough. So we needed to shrink the first column because that's a huge column. And what Android does really well is that it actually makes sure that, or it seems to make sure that this column is actually the same size as this column, which is very aesthetically pleasing. So that's good that it does it automatically. But anyway, so that's what those two do. And if you ever get stuck, you can just search for this. And then just go to the official Android website. And it'll give you a better definition than I can about what all these things I'm talking about do. How much time do we have? Okay, we're gonna have to cut this soon. It looks pretty nice. One thing I'll change right now is you'll notice that this doesn't quite line up with this button. So let's go ahead and center it. We already centered the gravity, so let's center the layout gravity. Make it center, and now it looks quite nice. Okay, the first part of our app is done. We're going to move on and code the rest of it in the next video.